On February 6, 2014, in the icy depths of Rana, Norway, a group of 5 Finnish men, Kai Kankinen, Patrick Gronqvist, Jari Hjorjuten, Vesa Rantanen, and Jari Yu, embarked on a perilous adventure. They plan to dive into a treacherous Pluragrotta cave, a submerged labyrinth connected to the 𝗔𝗕𝗢𝗨𝗧 dry cave. Little did they know, the darkness and cold would soon engulf them in a nightmare beyond their worst fears. To discover the whole story, watch the video until the end. Prior to the exploration, before this dive, Kai and Patrick had discovered a critical connection between the two entrances of the Pluragrotta cave system. Alongside another diver, they had become the first to traverse from one entrance to the other, navigating the perilous underwater pathways. This achievement fueled their confidence to undertake the traverse again, but this time, they plan to start from the opposite entrance. The cave system's depths are staggering, with some sections plunging over 426 feet, 130 meters below the surface. Stretching for several kilometers underwater, Pluragrotta is one of the longest water-filled caves in northern Europe. Its complex passages present significant dangers, including low visibility, narrow corridors, and a maze-like structure that can easily disorient even the most experienced divers. Traveling in Jari Hjortunen's van, the group hauled a trailer brimming with equipment, a snowmobile, underwater scooters, dozens of diving cylinders, and an array of smaller tools. Upon arriving at Jordbru Farm in Rana, near the Plura Cave, they rested for the night, preparing for the demanding dive the next day. Diving into depths over 130 feet, 40 meters is classified as technical diving, requiring specialized training. These men were seasoned technical divers, certified CER full cave divers, fully qualified according to international standards. Despite their thorough preparations and extensive experience, their dive was about to turn into a horrifying ordeal. The next morning, the temperature plummeted below freezing to -3 degrees Celsius. Despite this, the divers proceeded with their plan. Reaching the cave entrance for diving beneath the frozen Plura Lake required them to cut through the thick ice. While Kai, Vesa, and Jari Yu transported equipment to the 𝗔𝗕𝗢𝗨𝗧 cave, Patrick used a chainsaw to cut a triangular hole in the ice. Hjortunien dragged a sled ladder with equipment onto frozen lake. Despite the bitter cold and a delayed start, preparations were progressing smoothly. Soon, Patrick had cut through the icy layer, and the stage was set for their dive. The cave dive. Patrick asked Hjortunien if they should wait for the others to return. Hjortunien, without saying a word, gestured it was time to dive. Patrick nodded, and they plunged into the lake just after noon. As Patrick and Hjortunien started their dive, Kai, Vesa, and Jari Yu returned, pleased with the lake's clarity and prepared for their return. Patrick and Hjortunien activated their underwater scooters, which were crucial for conserving energy and navigating the cave's depths. Their descent initially took them gently down to a depth of 34 meters for over 500 meters. Then, their path briefly rose to a 250-meter-long air chamber, partially filled with water, a section suitable for novice divers. After the chamber, the pair continued their steep descent to 60 meters, then 100, and finally 130 meters. These tunnels were narrow squeezes that forced the divers to navigate cautiously with their hands. Misleading side routes could easily confuse divers in these claustrophobic passages. So far, the dive was going as planned, but their adrenaline was spiking as they prepared to begin their ascent. While they had tackled the most dangerous sections of the cave, they weren't out of the woods yet. Patrick cautiously ascended first, but as he navigated a particularly narrow section, making a 90-degree turn, he lost sight of Hjortunien's flashlight. This wasn't unusual given the narrow passage, so he waited. Suddenly, he saw his partner's light waving up and down, a terrifying sign of distress. Patrick's heart raced as he searched for any sign of Hjortunien. Every second counted. Desperately, Patrick made his way back, hearing Hjortunien yell for him. Hjortunien demanded that Patrick remove one of his large bailout cylinders, which seemed to be blocking his path. Patrick detached the tank and relocated his scooter to clear the way. Scanning the area, He noticed 𝗔𝗕𝗢𝗓's scooter cord stuck between two rocks. Clearing it was simple, but he couldn't understand why 𝗔𝗕𝗢𝗓 was so frantic. Suddenly, 𝗔𝗕𝗢𝗓 began to panic, switching between his bailout gas and closed regulators several times. Patrick tried to calm him down, but soon, 𝗔𝗕𝗢𝗓 wasn't switching between his breathing systems anymore. In fact, there was nothing in his mouth at all. Panicked, Patrick placed a regulator over his friend's mouth and pressed the purge button. But 𝗔𝗕𝗢𝗓 inhaled water, sealing his fate. Inhaling water at that depth was fatal. Patrick knew his friend was dead. With the path beyond them blocked, Patrick faced other problems. He needed to start ascending to the dry cave. His dive computer showed that he needed to stay in the 2-degree water for more than 400 minutes, over 7 hours, before safely ascending to the surface. Every minute he spent at that depth added another 10 minutes of decompression. With his bailout gas stuck with 𝗔𝗕𝗢𝗓's body and his valuable oxygen partly used, Patrick had no choice but to leave his friend behind. He began his ascent, calculating his slim odds of survival. The remaining group of 3. At the same time, Kai, Vesa, and 𝗔𝗕𝗢 began their descent beneath the ice, heading towards the 𝗔𝗕𝗢𝗪𝗔 cave. It was just after 2 p.m. Despite their meticulous preparation, Vesa wanted to bring extra cylinders as a precaution. Kai warned him that the extra cylinders would make it difficult to navigate the narrow passages, so he carried one of the extras to help Vesa. The second group moved swiftly through the cave system, reaching the deepest section in under an hour. Soon, Kai's prediction came true. Vesa had to remove his cylinders to squeeze through a tight spot. Shortly after, one of his fins got caught in the guideline. At that depth, even a 5-minute delay meant an additional hour of decompression time when ascending, frustrating Vesa. After freeing himself, they continued. As they neared the 90-degree turn, Vesa froze. A sharp beeping sound cut through the water, a distress signal from a failed breathing apparatus. He forced himself not to look at 𝗔𝗕𝗢𝗓's lifeless body blocking the tunnel. Keeping his composure, he removed more gear to fit through the narrow passage. 𝗔𝗕𝗢𝗓's light appeared behind him. Though his adrenaline-fueled fear, Vesa told 𝗔𝗕𝗢𝗓 that 𝗔𝗕𝗢𝗓 was dead. When Kai reached the narrow passage, he found 𝗔𝗕𝗢𝗓 exhibiting signs of distress. Kai tried to calm him, but 𝗔𝗕𝗢𝗓, in a panic, kept switching between his bailout gas and closed regulator system. Kai realized that if 𝗔𝗕𝗢𝗓 didn't calm down, he would kill himself. Despite Kai's efforts, 𝗔𝗕𝗢𝗓 died within moments. Kai pressed on and found Vesa struggling to get around 𝗔𝗕𝗢𝗓. Vesa, breathing heavily, trying to squeeze through. Kai had to make a hard decision. Vesa's chances of survival were slim. With 2 of his friends already dead and another unlikely to make it, Kai turned around, calculating his own slim odds of survival. On the other side, Patrick was making his decompression stops, slowly ascending to the dry cave. Stuck with thoughts of despair and guilt, he hugged the walls as he waited out the necessary stops. Meanwhile, Vesa was also ascending, sticking to his own decompression schedule. Kai, feeling responsible for the group, had already skipped a few decompression stops. The freezing waters were unforgiving, but he kept moving to stay warm. When his underwater scooter failed, it slowed his progress. What should have been a 15-minute trip from the air chamber to the entrance took 45 minutes. Patrick saw something he thought he'd never see. Vesa's headlamp filtering through the water below him. Feeling a surge of strength, Patrick made the remaining required stops. He surfaced around 9 p.m., about 90 minutes earlier than safe. In the dry cave, he waited for Vesa. Around 1:30 a.m., Kai emerged from the cave entrance in the pond pitch black darkness, expecting to see the hole they had cut, but it was gone. He aimed his light at the ice above him and began searching. Although he knew its location, he couldn't find it. Kai eventually located the hole concealed beneath a centimeter-thick layer of ice. After breaking through, he carefully placed his gear on the frozen surface and climbed out of the water. There was no sign of anyone else. At that moment, Kai thought he was the only one who made it. Still reeling from his nearly 12-hour dive, he went to the van, stashed his gear, and started the engine, resting. Patrick and Vesa had returned to the farm to change into dry clothes and call the authorities. They feared Kai had met the same fate as the others. Then, after 2 a.m., they noticed the light on in the van. They were overjoyed to see Kai had made it. Searching for the dead bodies. The tragic news of the deaths of the two Finnish divers spread rapidly that Friday, capturing widespread attention. Local authorities faced the daunting task of recovering the bodies from the cave. They enlisted the help of 3 seasoned British divers for the operation. Despite their expertise, retrieving 𝗔𝗕𝗢𝗨𝗧 and 𝗔𝗕𝗢𝗓 proved too perilous. Declaring the area too dangerous, officials decided to leave the bodies in the cave, imposing a diving ban and sealing off the site. Despite this, the surviving divers were determined to bring their friends home. Come spring, they vowed to fulfill this promise. Anxiety kept Kai from participating, and 𝗧, suffering a spinal injury from decompression sickness, took on the role of surface manager for the mission. This left Patrick to undertake the noble task. With support from many friends and extensive preparation, they set out to recover 𝗔𝗕𝗢𝗓𝗡 and 𝗔𝗕𝗢𝗓. In the end, it was Patrick and Sami Pakaranian who succeeded in bringing their friends back, ensuring they could finally be honored as they deserved. And that's all about our today's video. If you liked the video, press the like button and make sure you subscribe to our channel so you never miss out on any of our amazing videos.